Understood. I won't say that you will officially participate. But at least you can ask Mr. Whalesilik to help you. Hestia was silent for a long time, and finally made a deal. Even if they can't fight together, they at least need to borrow people. Mr. Bell and Mr. Warren, how should I say, in terms of fighting style, they fit together really well. So I hope the kid can come to help until the war game begins. To make the gods who came here for the meeting aware of the truth of rare abilities, she made a vague request. Hestia knew the source of a heart's desire, so she knew very well how much training or fighting with Ace would bring a leap to Bell. She helped Bell before the war game against Apollo. The boy quickly grew up with his special training and ultimately very upset about it, nearly killing her. Hearing Hestia's plea, Loki looked at her motionless, then shook his head weakly. No. What? Because why? Ace can't do anything. This resigned tone made Hestia a little embarrassed. Loki leaned back in his chair and looked up. That child is now the most strongly bound by the contract. In the vast desert shrouded in morning fog. It was an autumn morning as cold as winter, and the sun had yet to shine. Ace is here facing the Boar Man. I am here to convey the words of the goddess. The favor must be returned. The price you have to pay is silence. Ace's tightly closed lips trembled once. You are not allowed to participate in anything related to Bel Cranel. The deadline is until the decisive battle of the war games is over. The two must be equivalent. That? You mean it's unacceptable? After all, it is a verbal agreement. If you want to break the contract, I won't stop you. It's just that your sword will rot in that moment and fall into the mud. How can a sword that cannot keep its oath not be blunted? In the ocean of green with just two people, Otter didn't say anything else. The warrior turned his back on Ace and his figure disappeared into the depths of the mist. Left alone in the desert of battle, Ace pressed her lips together tightly and looked up at the sky. Bell. Sorry. All Ace squeezed out was this sentence. What's going on, Royman? The small human Palam's voice was full of accusations. Guildmaster Royman Mater was dripping with sweat, but he still looked steadily into Finn Deemer's eyes, who questioned him. It is clearly written in the notice. You, Loki Familia, cannot be allowed to participate in war games. This is a small cafe built in an alley away from the avenue. Finn and Royman are having a private meeting with just the two of them. Can you give us a reason to accept it? I don't need to explain, and I don't need you to accept it. Loki Familia, and Freya Familia, are two main forces that are also called the Two-Headed Urban, the strongest faction of all time. Zeus and Hera of the same. In this way, you must maintain excellent balance and always stay on top of Rio. Royman emphasized his tone, his intent was very obvious. There should be no conflict between Loki and Freya in the war game, causing the two to make up for each other. Driven by this idea, he is about to pour a basin of cold water on this war. And then, with his repulsive psychological preparation, in a way that verges on the dogmatic, I'm afraid, he is forced to materialize. The evidence is that Royman is pressing his fat belly with one hand and rubbing it constantly. He also looked bad. There are probably many people in the guild who are opposed to this decision, and even now there seems to be groans of stomachache. After all, choosing this kind of shop in an alley for secret conversations is also because Royman is afraid of being seen by others. If the adventurers directly invaded the guild headquarters to protest the spread of such rumors, the guild's prestige would immediately drop, which would intensify the dissatisfaction of the adventurers and guild officials. Public opinion will also become more intense. It would be a waste of time if Royman collapsed under heavy pressure, so Finn could only choose this company of his own family. The display case I asked about was used as a place for secret conversations. It's not hard to imagine that this suggestion was Royman's bitter plan. But as far as Finn is concerned, he doesn't want to be bothered. Her piercing eyes are incompatible with her gentle temperament. Finn is also having a hard time accepting this decision, so much so. What is the purpose of the war game? What is the purpose of establishing the rules? It is not a fight but a duel, carried out in the form of a competition. You cannot prevent killing. Are you worried? You are too ashamed. The adventurer's promise is simply not believable. Hearing Finn's point, Royman retorted aggressively. At this point alone, he will never back down. How many times have we completely believed his words and nobody died in the end? It's better to say nobody died is a minority. Even though killing the enemy's family is listed as a prohibited item, victims still appear. This is the guild view. Although it is a proxy war of the gods, those who fight are all bloody adventurers. Not to mention that if the opponent is a hostile faction, added to the enthusiasm of the battle, the rules of politeness and the like have already gone beyond reason. But in Finn's opinion, it's useless to say that now. In fact, the guild has turned a blind eye to sacrifices in war games until now. No, it's better to say that the guild is even recommending the war game itself. The main reason is that it's much better than starting a fight in the street. At the same time, it also has a kind of resignation idea, that is, only when the game is prepared and the method of judging the outcome is determined, can the karma between gods and goddesses be ended. However, there is no doubt that there is also a profit calculation of combat faction and faction to promote the sublimation of adventurers. In a way, war games are places of trials where the rewards outweigh the sacrifices. The war game between Hestia Familia and Apollo Familia is a good example. Hestia's faction broke the general prediction, not wanting to be the nutrient of Apollo's faction, took the victory and made the jump. In particular, Bell deservedly earned the Super Rookie title in that battle, emerging as a potential adventurer. Some people have even whispered that he is a new hero candidate. Royman insisted that the barbarian warrior Amazons, the holy land where they fight all year round, is different from the labyrinthine city, but since this place is called the City of Heroes, it is only natural that people who swore to become heroes have conflicts. However, even I know that, Finn. This war game is going to be the biggest ever. It's going to be so intense that the participants will lose their composure, and things like self-control will disappear. This is no exception. A war with Freya Familia is out, that's what it is. The cause of this disturbance is very bad. Memory itself was tampered with by the mindless enchantment, and everyone in Orario was arbitrarily thrown. Crying that their dignity has been insulted, there are many people who cannot contain their anger. God Freya committed an unacceptable act, and I admit it. But because of this, many people are extremely excited and the status quo is out of control. Dire Wolf is a good example. Werewolf Bert said that when the charm was broken by the goddess Hestia's hearth, they immediately went straight to the Freya Familia to remove their heads. He didn't stop even after the guild issued a truce order, and he could only count on Finn and the others to hold him back. Only this time, not even a risk in 10,000s cannot occur. There will be a crusade against the Black Dragon afterward, and the first-level adventurers must not be missed, especially you, Loki Familia, and Ada and the others. One of the 3 remaining adventurers' quests, the subjugation of the Black Dragon, is the Labyrinth City's responsibility and obligation. It could be said that if Finn and Otter both suffer, not only will it be harder to fulfill the Nether Realm's sad wish, but hope itself might collapse. Royman was more afraid of this happening than anyone else. If we don't enter the war, Hestia Familia, and the coalition forces will definitely lose. After hearing what he said, Finn narrowed his eyes and said, "What's wrong with that? Goddess Freya's request is just Bel Cranel's family change. He's just an adventurer changing his affiliation." Royman closed his mouth first and then replied in a low voice. "Even if Hestia Familia is defeated, just looking at the city's combat power, there won't be any damage," Finn said after a long absence. "It's been a long time since I've really wanted to smack my tongue deep into my bottom lip. The bad habits of the guild or Royman have been revealed. It becomes inhumane to focus too much on the big picture. As a guild leader, he is by no means an incompetent guild pig. However, he pays too much attention to the problems that most should be solved, which leads him to ignore human nature and even ethics. The same is true this time. In order not to undermine the Freya family's mighty urban combat power, he prevented the Loki family from intervening and even planned to abandon the Hestia family. While Royman experienced such strong aggression, he chose to side with the Freya Familia. Even if he is still afraid of the horror brought by the enchantment in the future, he will still rely on iron rationality to control his emotions, trying to fulfill the mission of the Labyrinth City, which is to fulfill the sad wish. As a politician, this must be quite correct, and among those who are concerned with the underworld, this is perhaps the wisest judgment. But at the same time, this is also an improper motive and should not be accepted by the world. And relying on that kind of thing, the Loki Familia, like Finn and Bet, wouldn't approve. What a farce, Royman. It has to be a fake, Finn." His eyes met. Returning to the braver with an almost murderous look in his eyes, the Royman elf never tried to look away. His gesture vaguely reveals his own conscience. "The form and rules of the war game, we will also discuss and decide with the gods. We will fight for justice so that both sides have a chance to win. I definitely don't want Hestia's faction to lose. Compare your statement carefully. And your behavior, how many people do you think will accept it? At least my team members won't approve. Besides, I don't intend to let them agree." Contrary to the words of trying to stay calm, Finn took revenge and Royman immediately blushed with anger. After blushing, he let out a big sigh.